Hi everyone and welcome back to the Love You Show. Today we're going to be talking about fear and how it has so much control over our thinking and our lives. Today we're going to be talking about where that fear comes from, but first, Andrew, can you give us a recap on last week's show?
Be glad to. So we talked about fear last week, and we talked about two types of fear. We talked about imagined fear and real fear. And I said that most of the fear that we have in our head is imagined fear, meaning that we make it up. We make up in our head that things are going to go bad, that things are going to go wrong. So then I wonder, given that we do that, where does that come from? So today's lesson is going to have us look at where the fear comes from in our computer program, which is that system that runs our actions, what we say and what we do. And usually what happens in a person's life that creates fear is that they have an event that is painful. And when you live through an event that is painful, you resolve to yourself that you don't want to experience that pain again. So what you do is you create this system where you're afraid that it's going to happen again, so you do whatever you can to prevent it. So what I was going to do today, I was going to go back over the situations that Ashley talked about last week and see where they came from and what pain created that thinking. But something happened yesterday that I thought would be more valuable, because I think that the value of this course is to really live in the moment and to address what's happening. And I know that it's going to be painful for Ashley today to talk about this. But I think that there's lessons here that we can glean a lot of information about, especially around this world of fear and how that affects our life. We are going to be spending a lot of time in this class talking about relationships, because I think it's in relationships that a lot of our illogical dysfunctional thinking comes through. So the topic we're going to speak about today with Ashley is her 4-year relationship, 3-year relationship, 3-year relationship that ended yesterday. So a lot of her emotion right now is really raw, and a lot of the pain that she's going through is real. So Ashley, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you met and what happened, and we'll shed some light on this?
Yeah. So I met about 3 years ago through social media on Instagram, and it instantly became a friendship that turned into a relationship that was long distance. And there was a lot of talks about what they wanted in the relationship and how they wanted to do things, and there was a lot of promises that were never fulfilled, and I continued to, just toss those under the rug and kind of ignore it, because I believed the excuses and the reasons and the lies. And I wanted a relationship with this person so badly that I just let those things go.
What kept you in?
Knowing that I love somebody, but the fear of realizing that we're not compatible for each other.
So take a moment now and think about those two concepts, because this is the reason why people stay in relationships longer than they should. And so what Ashley said is that she had love for a person. And in reality, having love for a person is the easy part, because it's easy to love. And we love many people in our life. So love is love. And love is also a mystery that we can't explain. We can't explain why we love somebody, but we do. And then the second thing that Ashley talked about was compatibility. So before she even met 3 years ago, I sat down with Ashley and asked her to come up with a list of 30 qualities she would like in a person. Do you remember?
Yeah.
You didn't know I was going to bring that up today.
No, but no, I felt it. It was
You
going to
did.
come up because you said something to me yesterday that just I don't want to say it struck that nerve, but it like was that reassuring. Like it made me think about the list that I created years ago and how what this person did to me is exactly what I put on my list that I do not want, and I don't tolerate that. And I instantly knew what I had to do because I deserve so much more than that, and I just couldn't put up with it.
So the list, and I would recommend that you do this, was created from Ashley thinking about what she would prefer in a relationship. And I have the list in front of me. Here are some of the things. So after we created the 30, I asked her then to go and pick the 10 that are non-negotiable. So here's a couple of the 10. He has a car. He lives within 15 miles. Lives on their own and open to someday living together. Yeah. He's healthy and athletic, and he's comfortable with himself. So those 5, non-negotiable. So go through them with me and tell me if it was there. Healthy, athletic.
No.
Lives on their own and open to someday living together.
No.
Lives within 15 miles.
No.
Has a car.
No.
And is comfortable with himself.
No.
So when you look at Ashley saying we weren't compatible, it's easy to see why they're not compatible. So not only did he not have the qualities that she was looking for in somebody, she also said that she was willing to stay in the relationship because she was afraid of being alone.
I was honestly afraid of breaking up and having to deal with the heartbreak, have to deal with the memories, have to deal with like not having this relationship, because I think I was honestly staying in the relationship because I was living on hope. I was hoping that he would finally want to grow up. He would finally want to realize that he needed to get his shit together, finally realize that like I want what's best for him, but I couldn't do that anymore. It wasn't my job. He had to want these things for himself, and if he doesn't feel like he's in the wrong and that he did everything he could, then yeah.
So Ashley made the biggest mistake that most people make, and that is they create this list and the items are non-negotiable, but what they hope is that they meet somebody, they love them, and then they can mold them into the list. This person can make that person become that. Now, how does that happen? Well, it happens because when we first meet somebody, they give us hope that they can change. And over time, we begin to realize that that's not going to happen, and we feel stuck. So when you think about meeting somebody at the beginning of a relationship, you're actually meeting the best version of themselves. So imagine there's these 2 people, A and B, and then there's A2 and B2. A2 and B2 are the 2 best versions of themselves. They're not really themselves, but they're pretending to be the best version of themselves. So they meet and they fall in love based on that person being the best version of themselves. And then what happens over time? B1 and A1 become themselves. So we, in that relationship, keep holding on for the person to stay as their best self, but they don't because they can't, because we haven't really met that person yet. Yeah. So over time, they become their authentic self. And so talk about that, Ashley, because you didn't really get to know him.
No, because we were in a long distance relationship for almost a year and a half, and I wanted us to finally be in the same city. And we had made a decision that he would make the move out here, and if he liked it and wanted to stay here longer, that he would make the move to have his own place here, which that eventually never happened. And I started to finally see who he was and how he lived and how his move and how he moves in his life and how he thinks about his life and how he does things. I saw how much it affected me, my life, my well-being, my business, and it became so much more work than I wanted.
Why? What was the motivation for having somebody move out that you didn't really know?
Because I thought that we could finally have this relationship together in the same place, and that if we ever wanted to be together, that this would be the right thing to do, is to move in with each other, because we're going to be with each other every day. We're going to finally know who we are with one another. And I just waited too long. I was too patient.
So was it immediate that you knew, or did it happen over time that you knew you weren't compatible? Better question. Did you know you weren't compatible over time?
Over time, most
Okay.
definitely. I didn't realize that idea kept coming closer and closer as things kept happening, and I continued to tell myself, it's me. It's me. I need to rethink how I'm doing things, or maybe if I tell him a few more times, he'll understand, or yeah.
So the pain that you talked about earlier that you have fear about going through,
Yeah.
how would you know you're going to go through pain?
You don't.
But how would you know?
How would I know?
Yeah, like
because
why would you say that?
From past experiences,
There you go.
they were hard. It was one of the hardest things for me to go through, because it was the first time I was going through it, and it was painful, and I just didn't want to revisit that place, because that place was dark for me then, and it drove me into this deep depression. And yeah, I just did not want to recreate those cycles I was creating. So I thought it would be better to just stay in this relationship and, tough it out and figure it out. Maybe go to therapy, maybe try to have a conversation about it, try to work on our communication. And I think I just drove the other person thinking that they were doing their best to please me. But at the end, I didn't want them to please me just to make me happy. I wanted us to both be happy.
So there's really great learning in what she said, because she said that she went through pain before. So this is the second time in Ashley's young life that she's had a relationship that ended, and she went through pain. So when we go through pain, that's when the fear kicks in, because we don't want it to happen again. What was you most fearful about in the first one? Because I know that one's different.
Being alone and not finding someone who appeared to look that way.
But you were also hanging in there with him because you were afraid of what he would do to himself.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So
there was fear of him hurting himself, or giving me the guilt trip that I created this and hurt him so badly. Yeah, it was just manipulation.
Yeah. So that one was different, but what was interesting to me is that she did the same pattern, which was she has a list. Number 1 and number 2 on the list is they live within 15 miles and they have a car. And both of these people moved here from the East Coast.
Yes.
Yes. Which makes me curious about why that's comfortable for you. Why not knowing somebody before they come here? I wonder why that's comfortable for you.
I don't know.
Well, you did have theories.
Yeah, and I still do have theories.
So
but
one of her theories Ashley had, which we're going to have to look at again. So my hope is that we go through this today and then we meet again on Tuesday and the pain will be less.
Yeah.
But she had this theory that there's quote-unquote nobody in San Diego. Or I'm not going to be able to meet anybody in San Diego. Do you recall this?
Yeah, that was my theory.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in that theory anymore. But I think it was also of like, how do I meet people here? I have so much insecurities about myself that like, I just feel like a hermit crab sometimes in my own home. And the only places that I really go to are gay clubs and bars, and you don't really meet straight men there. So I kind of just like put myself in this bubble to not meet other people.
So redo that, but say used to.
Used to, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely going through this has made me realize how I used to live my life before was involved, and how I have a different outlook on life, and how I don't have to hold these insecurities that I once had. And I don't know, it just feels like a fresh look. I also have this sense of relief that I don't have to deal with this, and I don't have to worry about another person, and it's just me and denim and my business.
So that limiting belief that Ashley had and that she carried in her head about I'm not going to be able to meet anybody in San Diego came from somewhere. And it came from her trying to meet people and it not working out, becoming more insecure. So then she creates this theory that the only way for me to meet somebody would be online, that they didn't live here and that I could create that. Now think about how illogical that is. That we live in a city of 2 million people where there's so many choices. And her number one and number two preference on her list is they live within 15 miles and that they have a car is not going to be met with that theory. So you can't go through life wanting something and then it being held back by a theory that you have that just doesn't make sense. True?
True.
Okay. How else can we explore the thing? Are you okay?
I'm okay. I mean,
let's talk a little bit about your tears and your pain that you're in today.
mm-hmm.
So can you describe it? Is it more than, less than yesterday? How are you coping? What do you do in your head to cope?
Yesterday's tears were more of sadness. Really just sadness and some anger and disbelief. Like, I can't believe this is fucking happening. But now today it's definitely anger and relief. I feel like I've lost this tremendous amount of weight, or I know that I've lost this tremendous weight that I've been holding on, but not at this moment. I don't feel it relief. Like I feel like it's coming off of me as I start to realize and think about the things that I can do and how I've just let my life go and how I've let someone control what it is that I do and how I live my life and how I think about my life, and I kind of plan it around their life. So I'm excited. I mean, it's more of, like I said, a relief, but I'm angry of what this person did to me and how things ended. And I also feel this sense of empowerment that I will never let someone treat me that way. Like, you took it to that point where I had to take it to a certain point, and I'm glad to just wipe my hands off. That's it.
So there's a relationship then between pain and then fear that it's going to happen again, and then this other big issue, which is trust. So when this happens, we lose trust. We lose trust in ourselves that we have the capacity to not do that again. And then we lose trust in other people, the world, situations. And this issue around trust then becomes something that you create in your thinking based on your thinking that it's going to happen again. So how are you feeling about men right now?
I mean, yesterday I was like, fuck them. And how they can be dogs and they can be cheaters and all these things were coming in my head. But I don't think that about all men. I just think this particular about one. And I mean, definitely the idea of like, can I trust somebody again comes crossing through my mind. But I know that going into the next relationship that I can't base it off of what happened in my last relationship and how I lost my trust in this person multiple times, and I convinced myself that it was my issues and my insecurities that were making up these assumptions, and I allowed it to go on for too long that I finally saw something that I did not approve, I don't tolerate, and continued with lies. And I just was like, I can't do it. Enough is enough. Like, you know, when you can't take any more lies, you know there is no turning back. I just knew at that very moment that if I accepted this person back after this lie, that I would just be putting myself through the same trauma that I once did, and that shit is not fun.
How many lies were there?
So, too many to count.
Yeah. So it was daily lies.
It was daily lies that I just felt like I was going crazy at the end of the day because I was arguing with somebody who I couldn't get through. There was days where I couldn't believe half of the shit that would come out of their mouth, and I just was in my head and I'm like, I shouldn't have to deal with this.
So part of her list that she created then was that she wanted somebody that valued truth. And in this relationship, she didn't get this. And yet she stayed. And when I would ask Ashley, why are you staying in this relationship? I always got the same response, because I love him. So the lesson here is that love is the easy part. It's all the other stuff that makes relationships more complicated. And that if you do the work on the front end and you create that list and you find somebody that matches your values and you're compatible with them, then you've done the work in the front end. I mean, if you look at what Ashley wanted on her list and the reality of who she was living with, they're totally different people.
Yeah.
And she would never want that person. But because she fell in love with them, she stayed. Anything else? Is there any other insights you might want to share? Because I don't have anything else.
No, I just think that this couldn't have happened in any other timing, and that you guys get to come along this journey now.
So we have a choice now, Ashley does. She can resolve, I'm never going to let this happen again. And she can say in her head, it's going to happen again. And then she's going to do the same thing she just did. Or she can tell herself, this happened. It happened before. Next time, I'm going to be true to what I want. And I'm not going to know how it's going to pan out. But at least I know I can create the kind of relationship I would like. So I'd like to end here and then pick up in a couple days and check in with Ashley and see where we're at.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. So that's it for today's show. I know that this show or this episode isn't the most easiest, but what makes me excited is that you guys get to see the rawness of me going through something that's really difficult in life, and that some of us may be going through the same thing right now or can feel the same pain, but know that we are not alone and that you guys are going to be going through this with me today. And I appreciate you guys for watching this, and I can't wait to see you guys back next week when you're giving me a couple of days to just think all this through and really go through the emotions. But I'm excited to get back next week and talk about this. And it's not a goodbye, but it's a bye for right now, you guys. Bye.